Hello photographer, welcome back to my channel. It's Belinda and this is where we talk all about photography, from inspiration to camera techniques to editing skills so that you could take better photos. This video is going to be all about how you could get your first photography clients as a beginner and basically how you start a photography business without prior experience. This video is not a techniques-based video. Techniques can be very helpful and that's why I do other videos like these, and I also do blog posts that outlines how exactly I started my photography business, and there you can find steps that you can really copy into your own situation. The thing with techniques is that it's usually something that people learn from their own experience. They've gone through something and their takeaways are the techniques that they tell you. So by nature, techniques are some things that are taken out of context, and when you apply it to your own situation, there might be some nuances that you will have to take care of, and that's why it doesn't always work for everyone. So the way I'm gonna go about it in this video is that I'm simply going to tell you the stories of how I got in touch with my first 3 commercially paying clients. I'm gonna tell you how they got in touch, how I moved things forward, and how it ended up. So this would give you a full perspective on where I was at as a photographer, what was my context, and you could then decide what to take away. I feel that this will be more helpful to people, trying to start a business, because honestly everyone is in a different situation and these techniques, while helpful, can be kind of out of context. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, so on to the first client. A bit about her first actually. She is a traveler and she was coming to Hong Kong for a few days, which is where I'm based at. She wants some photos of herself taken in her travels because she's trying to start up a travel blog. She reached out through Instagram DMs. When it comes to Instagram, I feel that this could be a great source of frustration for a lot of creatives, especially photographers, because Instagram has been up to no good. It hasn't been very generous with the content creators that has been pushing this platform so hard and driving users onto the platform. But anyway, you just have to cope with it. That's a reality, and I'm gonna tell you what my situation was with Instagram. I was mostly a street photographer until around 3 months in. There were some portrait photos because I was doing some collabs. Here and there I realized that maybe I wanted to branch into portrait photography, but my feed was still a mixture of street and portraiture. So the first point is that if you want to start a photography business, you don't necessarily have to be specialized. You can have other styles that you shoot as well. It's perfectly okay. Something that you might be interested in knowing is how large was my page, like how many followings did I have and how many likes were I getting on my page. I had around 3,000 followers on Instagram. My posts are generating around 200 likes, around 150 to 200 likes. What that tells you is that you don't want to accord too much weight onto how large your Instagram audience is. Some of you might be rolling eyes at me right now and saying, I haven't even reached the 1K mark and you have 3K and that's why you are getting found. That's one way of looking at it, but at the same time, there are way more people out there who got tens and thousands K of followers. I wouldn't regard myself as an Instagram success. Followers, your likes, these are vanity metrics that you cannot equate with sales and revenue. What really matters is how people find you, and people don't necessarily find you just because you are a large page. Instagram algorithm doesn't just recommend people based purely on how much likes they're getting and how much followers they have. They are recommending content based on a lot of other factors like type of accounts that someone follows and the type of hashtags that they're interested in. Definitely do not be overly concerned with how many followers you have. While it is important to know that you are growing, it really matters way less than you think. And so we talked on Instagram and I just randomly set a rate. I literally didn't know what I was doing, so I just completely randomly set a rate and she was like, okay, yeah, fine. And we agreed on a time and the location and we just shot. Now here is the important part. After the shoot, I asked her, so honestly, would you mind telling me how did you come across my profile? There's so many photographers in Hong Kong, and how did you end up on my page? She said that she found me via hashtags. And the hashtags that I was using at that time were things like Hong Kong photographer, Hong Kong portrait photographer, Hong Kong travels, Hong Kong travel photography. Now, the reason why this is so interesting is because most people use Instagram as a social platform, but we don't normally think of it as a search engine. But when it comes to sales, people do use it like a search engine. They do type in things like how they type things into the Google search bar. Now that you know this, you can think of how you can incorporate this into your Instagram strategy. So this kind of explains my point earlier on as to why you shouldn't conflate sales with vanity metrics. With vanity metrics, what you're really concerned with is your popularity of the account, and that really is the social media nature of Instagram. But on the other hand, there really is another nature of Instagram, which is a search engine, and that is what you should focus on if you are looking to improve your sales and to start a business as a photographer. The reason why I got her as a client was not because I had a large account. By no means I had a lot of followers, nor likes, nor comments, but my account was searchable. I made sure that when people type up Hong Kong photographer, I was there and that I was actually offering the things that people were looking for when they typed this keyword. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I landed my first ever deal. Now on to the second client. This client that I shot for was a corporate in Hong Kong who was holding a corporate conference, and they wanted a photographer to do mainly event photography for them. So this client I met through Facebook groups. I believe there would be in your locality, there might be some Facebook groups where people look for photographers and videographers on an ad hoc basis. So that was the case with me in a Hong Kong based event photography group. I saw this post that they were looking for a photographer and I PM'd them, and this time it was my website that I gave them. So one of the key is what I had on my website at that time. Again, as I've said, I was mainly a street photographer, and that's why most of the things I've shot were street shots. I did shoot events like demonstrations, campaigns, stuff like London Gay Pride and the London Coffee Festival. I was based in London before I came back. These were like public events that were not corporate in nature at all. At school, I also had shot some student society stuff, but honestly, like when it comes to corporate, I didn't have any experience, but I just still showed them what I had. Nevertheless, turns out they liked my work. They were like, oh, I really like the colors in your profile and I really like how you make the people come alive, and so they asked for my rate. This time I did some research, and so there were some freelance websites in Hong Kong where they give you an average of what the photographers are charging for various types of photography. So for events photography, I think the rate was like 500 Hong Kong dollars to 1,000 if I was not mistaken. So I was like, okay, I tried something in that range. It took them a few days before they got back to me about the quote. They asked for a small discount and I was cool with it. So I got the gig and it just went from there. The takeaway from this is that you could probably start doing the same. Go to the community Facebook groups, and whenever something comes up, you try to get a shot at it. Another interesting point that you might want to note is that a lot of it boils down to timing and luck. I didn't have any prior experience of doing corporate photography, but the clients were cool with it. Apparently, there will be some clients who think that this is a deal breaker because they need to see evidence of previous work of a similar type before they will trust you with their money. But it's fortunate that I came into this client who doesn't really think that way. I totally understand how this might not be something that you want to hear, but on the bright side, you will get lucky once in a while as well. So it happened to me and I believe that it will happen to you as well. Good luck! Okay, now on to the third client that I shot. This client is also an Instagram lead, but specifically she found out about me because I did a shoot for an influencer that she was following, and she was really impressed with the photos that I took for that influencer, and that's why she got in touch and asked for my rates. I know that a lot of you recommend photographers who are starting to do collab shoots with influencers for free. Now, my take on that is that you will have to be very selective on the influencer that you collab with, because based on my experience, shooting collab shoots with influencers is not a method with a high ROI. Probably you'll have a 1% chance of anyone in their audience being actually interested in shooting with you. From the point when I got my first portrait photography client till the point which I got this client, half a year has elapsed and I was doing a collab shoot every single weekend. Literally, one shoot per week with a different influencer. It has been half a year before one lead actually got into my DMs and told me that they are willing to pay for my work. And there's also one important caveat for this to work. You need to select influencers who respect photographers. So look at whether or not they have credited other photographers that they have collabed with, whether or not they tag them, and whether or not they mention who the photographer was in the caption. The reason why this particular lead came up was because the influencer I worked with did tag me and also mention explicitly that I was a photographer. I have a feeling that without these two, people don't really notice who the photographer is, and that's why doing these kind of collab shoots wouldn't drive much traffic to your work. That's how I got my first free client. I've been there as well as a beginner. Hearing all these tips, they make a lot of sense on paper and I know that they work, but somehow it's a different story when I try to apply them into my own situation. So I hope that this has put things into perspective for you and that you know how this can realistically play out. If you are looking for some quick tips, head over to my blog where I break it down into easy to follow tips. Now if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, hit the bell as well because this supports my YouTube channel massively. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!